Dude. I don't even know how to start this show today, man. I'm not even going to start it the traditional way.
If you just start it by not calling me a slur that would get you bleeped out, you're ahead of the UFC broadcast already.
All right, this is the UFC 293 live recap show on the Sherdog Radio Network. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He, of course, is the great Ben Duffy. We'll get to the fantasy MMA later as somebody, not Jay Petrie, who everyone thought would have a huge lead. Actually, Mr. Ben Duffy does. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm still processing. That's the hard thing about a show like this is I'm still processing.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, let's do it.
Is this the upset of the year, or is it still Grasso Shevchenko?
Oh, I think this is.
I like what somebody said in the chat, and I'm going to give proper credit for it by finding it and posting it here. But they called it maybe the greatest, like, pillar to post upset of a generational fighter in MMA history. Because this wasn't somebody just catching lightning in a bottle and landing one huge haymaker.
All right, well, let's put a pause on that because we got a lot to talk about. I want to rewind before the event started.
Oh, okay, sure.
I came into tonight's show right before the main event came up. I didn't have any text messages from the casuals. I was sitting there and I was like, man, the UFC blew it. I thought they picked the wrong date. I mean, the location, it is what it is, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, you start the week, Monday's Labor Day. A lot of people are away camping or fishing or whatever, cookouts. People do their thing on, and I know people outside of America probably didn't know what I'm talking about. Obviously, you do. It's a big holiday. It's the wrapping up the summer holiday. School started for a lot of people this week. College football started. NFL started Thursday night. There were so many things burying this card with all the other stuff. And I'm sitting there, and then you have a weak card on paper on top of it. I mean, you have a co-main event that probably should be like a lower down the card pay-per-view fight. You have other fights that probably shouldn't even be on the main card. I was thinking, wow, there's two really marketable fighters. You have Israel Adesanya, who's one of the biggest stars in the sport, and then you have Sean Strickland that has this incredible backstory, which we'll get into a little bit. And I'm like, man, nobody's messaging me. None of the casuals are asking for my bets. Nobody. This one's gonna do crazy bad numbers. And then the main event happens, and it's about round 3, and my phone is blowing up. Text message. I have it. How are you scoring? I have this. I have Strickland, and listen. I got some meathead friends. All right, I get some Republican friends. I'm Republican. I get some Republican. You know exactly what I'm saying. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not. Man. All you guys on the chat, don't at me. I'm as Republican as they get. Yeah. I'm more right than Ron DeSantis. All right. But my notes right now, I don't know where the hell I'm going right now. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. My notes are so, and I'm never the most organized, but I kind of have an idea. We've been doing this long enough. I kind of have a flow of what I want to do. My notes are as crazy as Strickland's brain. It's all over the place right now. I don't even know where to start. Sean Strickland goes into Australia, and I know Izzy is born in Nigeria, trains and lives in New Zealand for a long time. Yeah. I know that's technically not his home country, but I mean, it's his area. This is his card.
They stick together in a way that Americans and Canadians don't necessarily do.
Yeah. Well, American states don't stick together like they do. This is Izzy's home country. This is his homecoming. He's supposed to have the big pop. I think he did. I still think he did have the biggest pop of the night. But Sean Strickland is in Australia getting cheered. He wins the belt. The crowd is going crazy for him. It was so I couldn't believe what was going on. It'd be like the Chicago Bears win like Ohio State goes into Michigan and wins, and the Michigan crowd's cheer for Ohio State or something like this. That I couldn't believe. I didn't think it was possible, but Sean Strickland is a star.
Yeah.
And
some Rocky IV levels of winning over the hostile crowd.
Yeah, that's perfect reference. And again, we're showing our age. It was absolutely incredible. You said, the best upset in, pillar to post performance. I'm going to disagree on that a little bit. I'm going to go with TJ Dillashaw, Renan Barão, because like that was an ass whooping.
And Barão was unquestionably the greatest bantamweight of all time up to that point. Nobody gave Dillashaw a chance, and then Dillashaw was just clearly superior. The whole time. Good call.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're not going to go into that. Like, whatever. I want to talk about this. I'm watching this fight. Like I said, you know what, Ben? You start talking about something, and I'll get myself together. I don't know what the hell to talk about.
This is obviously, if we're talking about objectively, then you talk about what were the lines, how did the lines change throughout the fight. But subjectively, this was such an easy fight to predict. If you don't mind being dead fucking wrong, because it was the worst possible style matchup for Strickland. He checked all the boxes for Adesanya to humiliate him. He is a technically solid but limited striker, throws mostly nothing but a 1-2, and doesn't have standout power. He's not I only have to touch his chin once type of guy. He can't wrestle, but he has a demonstrated tendency not to do so when it's in his best interest. That's first ballot Hall of Fame. Adesanya's going to stuff you in the trash can head first. And Strickland came out, did all those things. Although, I mean, clearly he showed that you can't dismiss his power entirely, but just did Sean Strickland things, didn't show any new wrinkles, and made it look easy. It's not just that he won. It's that he made it look easy. It got easier for him as it went along. And by the beginning of the 5th round, the only real suspense to me was whether the judges were going to interpose themselves and make themselves part of the story. Because even looking at the interactions between Adesanya and Behrman between rounds, Adesanya he looked discouraged.
Yeah.
I had no sneaking suspicion that Adesanya was going to come out and land some Matrix time strike on Strickland and turn this fight on a dime. Like if you had paused at the end of the 4th round, beginning of the 5th, I would have said Izzy loses this round 2, and he loses the exact same way he lost rounds 2 and 3. Strickland's going to walk him to the fence. He's not going to let him escape unpunished. He's going to just brilliant stuff from Strickland. And a definite back to the drawing board moment for Adesanya, because I think it's partly, Adesanya may not have had a great night at the office. He never really got out of first gear, but also it reminds me of the Machida thing where now a little bit of the mystique has been stripped away. Okay, it turns out that if you ignore a lot of the noise coming from Adesanya, he is kind of hittable. And even your medium strength strikes, if your feet are planted and he's in the middle of doing something weird, have a greater impact on him than you would think. Almost everything Strickland landed solidly hurt Adesanya, even though Strickland wasn't winding up on anything. He was just planting his feet, throwing his same old jab in 1-2. For a guy who looked as nervous as he did all week, he looked like he could have done this for 20 rounds tonight. He looked like he was just at the gym sparring with one of his best friend training partners that he sees every week. The moment did not get to him.
Yeah. It's funny.
You went mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. When DC, was saying how nervous he looked, I usually try to stay away from that.
Sure.
I try to stay away from, but he did look nervous. And Izzy looked so loose. He looked like, the 22-year-old kid walking into the 40-year-old man's basketball league, like knowing he's about to just over every old man. That he looked so confident. Like, all right, I'm dropping 40 tonight. This is easy. And this fight reminded me. I'm going to go back a little bit. It reminded me of Randy Couture versus Tim Sylvia, where Couture hurt Sylvia immediately. And of course, this wasn't immediately, but near the end of the 1st round, Adesanya got hurt, and I thought he was recovered. and I think he was recovered in his head, but I don't think he was like, I think he was okay. Like, I don't think he was injured the rest of the fight, but I think it just stopped everything he wanted to do, and he could never like get his game going. He was off all night, and look, like you said, Strickland was, you know, I tweeted out, I think it was RC Kim put it. Lars Sanko said it perfectly. The guy won a UFC World Championship with a push kick and a 1-2 punch, nothing else.
Yeah.
And his defense, a Philly shell that Adesanya had so much trouble. Adesanya's jab wasn't landing. And what was concerning to me about Izzy, no urgency. He even at the end, like the fifth round, it seemed like he was okay with losing the belt. Like, it was just like, okay, it's not my night. Almost like he didn't want to go out on his own shield. Like, he was like, I'd rather lose a decision right now than like lose get knocked out. Like, he was the complete opposite of the Korean Zombie result, where the Korean Zombie, like, F it, I'm going to go for it. I want to address again. I have so many I even know where I'm going. We'll get to the technical stuff, but yeah, we'll stay with the technical stuff for a little bit. Okay. The Philly shell, which Strickland is one person that uses MMA, very, very rare. I really thought that Izzy was just going to pick that apart. He couldn't. But the big thing, and it goes back, I know I sound like a broken record, pressure changes fights. When you have to fight off your back foot, it is so different. I didn't like what Izzy did. I didn't like Izzy's like back up to the cage, trying to play that like little bit of Anderson Silva playing against his back against the cage. I didn't like that. I just like what Strickland was staying on him. Made him fight on his back foot. Never let him take the lead. He was fighting at Strickland's pace, fighting Strickland style. Like, he was going strictly. It feels like when like a wrestler goes into like a jiu-jitsu match, like, and they have to wrestle under those rules. Like, Bo Nickel goes against Gordon Ryan, and of course he's going to lose. You're going into his style, and it's his rules.
You're going against the GOAT who has 50 pounds on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's what it felt like. It felt like the rule was for Izzy to have to back out and fight off his back. I'm thinking like, Izzy, circle to the center, use your push kick to keep your distance, push him back with your own kick. And he did nothing. He didn't sit back. He didn't throw any punches. I know nothing about MMA. Like, I'm sitting there. I'm heading into this. I'm heading into the main event. I'm sitting there. My record is 10-1. My one loss was the Jack Jenkins, the wizard kick injury. When I was going to make an excuse for if I went 11-1. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm saying Izzy's going to starch him. And this is what I just love MMA for shit like this.
Yep.
I just love it. Talk to me.
Yeah, I learned a lot tonight. Again, this is such a different feel, and it's such a different conversation than if Izzy had like snapped his knee ligaments throwing a kick, or Strickland had landed some crazy Hail Mary punch or something. No, this was a lesson. Clearly it was a lesson for Adesanya and his coaches, but it was a lesson for me. I've been watching this sport for a long time. I generally feel like I have a pretty good grasp of what I'm watching. So such a stunning reversal of my expectations was it was refreshing. It's why I watch this. It's what's great. Yeah, like praise to solid fundamentals.
Yeah, another thing I was surprised, besides saying no urgency, I don't know if Izzy threw more than like a 2-punch combination in the entire fight. Like, I don't remember him opening up like a 3-4 punch combination, or one thing that Izzy's always been really good at is mixing his kicks with his punching combinations. Like, I don't think he did that a single time where like, he throws a 1-2 and then finishes with a high kick at the end or something like that. But heading into this, what I expected, like, Izzy's going to have this fantastic entrance, which he talked up. He's going to have a great entrance. Very, very blind entrance. But, I expected him to have this huge entrance, be in Australia, him having a spectacular knockout against a big mouth like Strickland, which sets him up to have like that big moment with the crowd's going crazy. and you set up the Duplessis fight, and maybe you can even make it happen in South Africa like it should, or you set up Chimaev if Chimaev beats Costa. Like you have an even bigger fight now that's going to sell even bigger. And Shillan Strickland just changed everything. But I think it's I don't want to say it's a good thing. Like, is he losing the belt? And I'm talking about a promotional sense, not in the sense of like who I'm rooting for or anything like that. But I'll say this: if you told me Izzy loses the belt, to me that's like a bad thing. This was like a lateral. Like I don't think the UFC lost out. Now I don't think Strickland's going to have a long run as champion or anything like that. But it's not what I would have guessed.
No.
When Kamaru Usman losing, but the way he lost Leon Edwards was a good thing. But losing Leon Edwards being a champion, it's not really a good thing.
Well, let me ask you a question. And not saying yet what you would do or what the UFC will do, but just saying if the UFC books an immediate rematch of this fight, say 5 or 6 months down the road, who goes in as the favorite?
I still think Izzy.
I think Izzy goes in as a slight favorite again, even though Strickland just beat him pretty bad by doing nothing but beating Strickland.
Yeah. Izzy looked bad. He looked really bad. I don't know if we'll find out that he had an injury or what, or just, he had a very terrible. I mean, Peyton Manning's had 4 interception games. Like, shit happens. It could be something. The Lions just beat the Chiefs. Shit happens. Shit happens.
Great comment by Alan McDonald that I just put on the screen. This is a fight that it feels like to me. Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt, where Garbrandt came in and did exactly what we expected him to do, and it just worked a hell of a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go. I want to talk about Strickland for a second. His personality. So I said something on the previous show that people misinterpreted because, of course, I should have clarified better. I said I don't really like Strickland's personality. It's not true. I don't like one half of his personality. I don't like the seeing Jose Youngs at the media day and asking him if he has a pierced dick. What are we 14? I don't like that. I don't like the bully guy. I don't like that. I love now I want to phrase this. I want to make sure I'm very clear. I don't love what happened to him. Obviously not. With his dad, and obviously not. But him being so open and honest about that, being open and honest about his grandfather, into how brave it is to say I had a time where I was into being neo-Nazi in 2023, where everyone is so careful of what they say, or you might be accused of being a racist. And he just rips off it. It's yeah, I was a racist. Him, and again, I want to be extremely clear because I know some people out there is going to say, "Oh my God, he loves that he was a racist." No, I'm like how brave and honest he is. That's what I like about Sean Strickland. If we can have more of that, the guy who's the example for that kid who grew up in an abusive household, who thinks no one loves him, and you can have a champion to say, "Hey," kind of that almost Goodwill Hunting, I know it's a movie, but the guy who's successful despite all the terrible things that should never happen to a human.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That'd be the perfect thing. So get rid of that other nonsense that he does, and be that guy. That'd be fantastic.
Sure. Obviously, he's not a polished person in terms of his social graces, and he's completely open about it. He's always been open about it. He said, I'm white trash. I come from a bad background. What do you guys want from me?" There's something about him that reminds me a little bit of Nick Diaz, where he is a socially uncomfortable guy. You could always a lot of the things that people were saying about Strickland this week just reminded me of prime Nick Diaz, where he had trouble making eye contact. I
don't know if Ben, you break it up a little bit. Okay, Ben's breaking up. I'm just going to talk until Ben comes back. Happens sometimes we do a live show. I'll bring it back and hopefully Ben will come along. don't know if Ben can hear me. Hopefully, okay. I lost him. I'll have to take this banner off for a second so you don't have this line going down my face. So hopefully Ben will just. All right. Let's see. Beg it.
There.
Ben. All right. Are you saying he reminds you of Nick Diaz and
yeah,
Dead?
it reminds me of Nick Diaz in that for the most part it's not a put on. It's just you're always getting the top card on the deck. Like there's nothing affected about this. You know, that's what I get from Strickland. He's gonna probably say some controversial and inappropriate things for as long as people keep sticking a mic in his face, but it comes from a place of honesty. I don't think he's saying these things trying to get a rise out of people or trying to sell both tickets to hark back to Nick Diaz again. It's just what we're going to get. And I'm not saying it's a great thing, but it's who he is. This sport attracts a disproportionate amount of antisocial types from all kinds of backgrounds. They can't all be George St. Pierre. They can't all be Damian Maya or, insert name of fighter who's also a great citizen here. If what we get from Strickland for as long as he is a champ or contender is a clean criminal record, no family news whatsoever, and some shit that occasionally has to get bleeped out at press conferences and post-fight interviews, I call that a win.
yeah, you're right.
Again, I'm not condoning anything he says. I'm just saying, temper your expectations of the man.
Yeah,
it'll be an interesting time.
Yeah, Ben. People are talking about your audio. It's you're not breaking up. It sounds very muffled right now. Hopefully it'll connect better. I used to do a show called Too Personal, where I just really dig into someone's personal life, and he's definitely a guy that I would love to really sit down and pull away all the rest of that stuff and just talk, because definitely a fascinating guy. Let's talk about the actual action for a second, which I'm watching the first round, and I sit there and I go, wow, like, I thought Strickland blew it. I said he couldn't finish him. He doesn't have that, like, he caught him really clean, but he doesn't have that fight ending, start you. He's going to always have, I think this is what I'm expecting to write up, what we're going to be talking about. Like, he didn't have that fight ending power. He's going to have that, like, I was so close moment in the first round. And for a second, let me pause for a second. I was looking at people's scorecards, like heading in, they're posting it, that people are like, after 3, it's 29-28, or it's 1 round each, or it's 2-2, or whatever people say. I'm like, am I the only person on planet Earth to score the first round a 10-8 round? If that's not a 10-8 round, what the hell's a 10-8 round? Like, he almost knocked Izzy out, and then they hit him like 30 times as his way he's getting up. Like, that's as clear as a 10-8 round there is. I can't believe no one was mentioned in the first round of 10-8 round. Anyways. I know, Ben, obviously I know you scored at a 10-8 round because you know what you're doing. But
I actually scored at 10-9 for Strickland.
But that's not a 10-8 round?
It was right on the borderline for me.
Oh, my Lord.
Lev popped into the Sherdog scoring channel and pointed out that if Goddard was reffing the fight the way he did O'Malley versus...
Yeah, he stole that. He stole that from my tweet. I tweeted the same thing. I literally tweeted the same. I was going to bring that up next. Yeah. I imagine, Ben, I'm going to disconnect you. I don't know if anybody else. Is everyone else having a hard time hearing him? It's like, or is that just me, my old man? Someone just put in the chat, right? If not, we might disconnect you. Have you come back in.
I'll leave and come back.
All right, yeah, just come back in. Yeah, okay. So people say this. I have terrible hearing, so I want to make sure it wasn't me. But I figure I talked to him enough that I kind of know where his volume should be. Okay. Yeah, he mentioned, and I know, guys, bear with me with this line going down my face for a second. That's what happens. We have a banner up for 2 of us. Let me do this, just in case we. Let me see. Oh, that's UFC 257. That's not gonna work. Yeah, that's not gonna work. All right, it's been back. There you go. All right.
How do I sound?
Oh, way better. Okay,
Great.
Way better. All right. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Your mic is doing a very Izzy Adesanya performance tonight. That really struggling.
It deserves an immediate rematch, then, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. Like, I could imagine being Aljamain Sterling for a second, watching what happened and being like, dude, what? Like, what the fuck? Like he ate way more shots than Aljamain, landed on Aljamain, and it was the same referee. That was the worst thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that, I saw Izzy talking to his team, asking him what happened, but also like, saying, "Oh, okay, I'm all right here, and everything's cool." And he starts. One thing I was impressed by him, like, he just started jabbing, moving, sticking. He wins the second round. I go, okay. One note I wrote was, Izzy did it the brilliant way that you don't have to get that big punch back. You just win the round, go back to his thing. Don't. And I said, oh, that's why he's Izzy. That's why he's the best, because he doesn't Robert Whittaker you, where he's got to like, oh, you hurt him. He's got to try to come back and land a big shot of his own. Nope. I'm going to stick to my game plan. I'm going to win. The problem is he never got out of first game. He looked like a car with like a car that has like a dead battery where you got to like you got to start it up and then you jump it, but then like it got you home, but then the next morning it won't start up again. And then you got to jump it and eventually like you got to go down to AutoZone and get yourself a new battery. Like that's what I felt like Izzy was like.
Yeah.
Do something different than back against the cage and just lose on volume. And then I want to talk about the coaching of Eric Nixick. I thought he was brilliant.
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
All right, go ahead. Talk about it for a second. You go.
Eric Nixick, you always look for a blend of things when you're watching coaches speak to fighters. And obviously, I'm always hesitant to judge these interactions negatively because I'm watching 60 seconds of interaction by people that have spent hundreds or thousands of hours together. They oftentimes have their own kind of coded language, and it's the coach's job to say to the fighter what will get the right information into their head and then the motivation into their heart. They're not trying to communicate to me. They're trying to communicate to the fighter, and I'm eavesdropping. But having said that, Nixick just brought a perfect blend of the right strategic recommendations and the right sense of urgency. Just telling Strickland what to do, being honest when he left rounds too close, telling him to go to the body when Adesanya was, kind of backed against the fence and doing his lateral movement thing. The way he had him checking the leg kicks. I don't think we've talked enough about the way he checked Adesanya's leg kicks and just kind of quietly nullified one of Adesanya's underrated weapons. It's not just that he checked him. It's that the way he angled his leg, it just turned into this harmless slap against his thigh and his shin at the same time. They just effectively, because when you normally check a leg kick, it reduces the impact on your leg and it basically makes it so the kicker hurts themselves as bad as they hurt you. It's just two like sticks hitting each other in space. But by doing the little kind of what I think Lorosenko called the hacky sack thing, where he's kind of tilting his foot in and his knee out, it just harmlessly slapped against the outside of the leg, didn't harm either guy. And once Strickland started to do that, he could start ignoring the low kick, and Adesanya kind of stopped throwing him. Just brilliant work from Nixick, both in the prep leading up to the fight and then definitely the talk in between rounds.
Yeah, and if you watch how he talked to Manal Cop on the main card versus Strickland, Manal Cop, they showed him talking to him heading into the third round. It was very relaxed. It was very technical sound. And with Strickland, it was different. It was a mental thing. And it was like one point he goes, don't let him off the hook. Like you lost the second round, but it was right there for the taking. Like, go steal that round. And he says something like, I didn't come here to lose a boring decision. Like, don't let him cruise. Don't let him do that. And he said, she's like, you get snake charmed. I thought it was perfect. There was one point, I don't know what round it was. I think it was like the fourth round, maybe, like heading into the fourth round, where he comes in, he just gets him. He's like, dude, like, you can beat this motherfucker, or whatever he says, like,
what?
Right.
He called him a cocksucker. And I guess he figured by that point, saying that wasn't even going to get him on the medal platform of inappropriate things that were said. So he's like, I'm safe. Like,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit, but, and then he like just leaves the cage, and there's like 20-30 seconds of that like middle time left where Eugene Berriman, who's obviously a genius himself, is coaching Izzy, and then obviously he's doing what he does, very technical, pull your right hand here, do this, do that, and it's just Sean Strickland just walking back and forth ready. Like, I don't need instruction. I'm Like it was a mental warfare, and he just let him have it. Like no, just he's fine. I said what I needed. Don't need to say anything else. Just to me, there was way. I think there was so much more going on there than we know.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Like I don't even need the whole 60 seconds. Just talk, mic drop, leave.
Yeah. Besides all the stuff that goes on with Sean Strickland, if you go back to like when he fought Jack Marshman, if you told me that guy would win, or the guy who lost to, when he was a welterweight, losing to Zaleski Dos Santos and all this, that guy would win a UFC title one day, I'd say you're crazy. It just I put him in that same category. I put guys like, when Jan Blachowicz won the title that I never expected to go, when Robbie Lawler returned and then he wins the title and stuff like that. I'm still in shock, and I want to address something real quick because I'm not addressing to our listeners because I know our listeners are extremely educated, but this is in case somebody who's a lot of people on Twitter and stuff wanted to, people like to throw things out, and they live in. I live in the moment, but they live in their time frame. Like, you ever see these like Mount Rushmores of team sports? Like people are like, oh, Mount Rushmore of team sports, and they're like, New York Yankees Mount Rushmore, and they're like, Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, and Bernie Williams. I'm like, right? Not Babe Ruth, not Lou Gehrig, not Mickey Mantle, not Joe DiMaggio,
forgetting a few people.
Yeah. That's what happens when people call this the biggest upset. I've seen so many people. Biggest upset in MMA history. No, it's not. George St. Pierre George St. Pierre losing to Matt Serra is the biggest upset in MMA history. I'm sure someone's going to come at me. It wasn't the biggest betting line or anything like that. No, I mean, from people who nobody was picking, like Sean Strickland was still, fifth, sixth, seventh, wherever he was in the rankings, best fighter in the world in the weight class.
Yeah.
Matt Serra was a blown up welterweight moving up a weight class who won a reality show beating Chris. Well, first of all, he got spinning back fist, almost knocked out by Shoney Carter again on the Ultimate Fighter show.
Yep.
Then he beats Chris Lytle in one of the most boring matches in history.
A split decision where the dissenting vote was 30-27 for Lytle.
Yeah, like a lot of people thought he lost. He was a jiu-jitsu guy without any punching power against George St. Pierre, who at that time just beat Matt Hughes, who was viewed as the greatest welterweight at the time. High kick knocked him out. He was going to be the next thing. And then obviously he did become the next big thing.
Yeah.
So that I don't know if this is the biggest upset this year. I think it is, but like there's a debate. But like biggest upset ever? No, no question. No, not close. Anyways, the big question is, I mean, do you do an automatic rematch?
No, you know me. I am against automatic title rematches unless there was some sort of controversy. Here, there was no controversy. It was the opposite of controversial. It seemed like the most expected thing in the world once we saw what was going on. And the other thing is, my guess is going to be that Strickland is going to be ready to fight again before Adesanya is. I expect that Adesanya will go back to the drawing board here, and he'll maybe want to fight in like 6 or 8 months, where Strickland might want to fight in 4. It's not hard for Strickland to make 185 pounds. So, and he, as he pointed out in his post-fight interview, he doesn't have a mark on him.
Yeah.
Like he's got like a light like sheen, like he's in a women's deodorant commercial, like of sweat, and like no cuts, no bruises. No immediate rematch. Let this simmer. They were so respectful to each other in the immediate aftermath of this fight after being nasty to each other for a year and a half leading up to this. If there's going to be a rematch, let's build towards it. Let Strickland defend the title. Let Adesanya, instead of coming into a rematch 1-2 in his last 3 fights, let him dust some guy in the lower reaches of the top 10 and remind us how sublime he's supposed to be at his best.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about like how nice they were to each other in the post fight because I mean we've seen that. We saw Conor and Poirier being nice to, in the second fight. The next minute, Conor was talking about
Like,
kind of was talking about digging into your DM, your wife in
yeah.
my DMs and shit.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, give that time to wear off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'll get to who you want to, do next. The one thing about not doing the immediate rematch is it's hard to have a lot of confidence that Strickland's going to hold the belt if you don't do a immediate rematch. So you might lose that opportunity, but we've lost opportunities in big matches with Izzy already. Like, Shemaev would have been a big match, and Duplessis would have been a huge match. So I mean, that always happens. You always take that chance. I want to address something. So I think it was Alan McDonald said biggest upset in middleweight history. Maybe. I mean, Weidman over Anderson Silva is up there. I mean, I don't know. That's like, to me, that's like, I actually picked Weidman, but how Weidman won. Like, I know Weidman's going to wrestle, but I think how it happens changes. Is he? You got to ask this question, and we're always going to, this is the big thing. I don't know if he's going to want to take too much time off because he's excuse me, he's always been a very active guy. So maybe he needs the time off. So you might be right in that sense, because besides the physical, training, and they have so much responsibility. He was doing movies and all kinds of stuff was going on, and he's a good teammate. He travels to his teammates' fights, and he's, they have media things and all that. But the mental wear and tear too. Maybe get yourself up really excited for a big match, and so maybe he does need some time off. But if you have to ask this question, and someone else in the chat earlier mentioned that his record over his last 7 fights is 4-3. Now I think most people, and you and me, kind of give him a pass for the Blachowicz, going up,
sure,
being much smaller, but he's lost 2 out of his last 3. He was knocked. And even if you just take the last 3, I mean, he was knocked out by Alex Bay, which, wasn't out cold, but it was TKO'd, which is not a bad loss at all. He avenges it, but even in that fight, he gets hurt. He's put against, it was bad going in for the kill, trying to finish him. In this fight, he gets hurt again, loses over 25 minutes. He's not looking like that. And again, I know it's easy for me to just ignore him knocking out Alex Pan. Like, I understand that's easy, but this isn't the. I mean, even the rematch against Robert Whittaker, a lot of people thought he lost. I don't. I think that's what's the word I'm looking for? Like, when someone he's supposed to get blown out, but they don't, so people kind of over credit them.
Yeah. People conflate a moral victory with just a flat out victory.
Yeah. Like, number 5 Tennessee plays, unranked Wichita State, and they win 35-28, and they, there's a scoreboard that shows that they won, but like MMA doesn't have that scoreboard, and that people give it like, oh, Wichita won that. Like, no, like, so I think that kind of happened in that, but still, like, it wasn't a great. Like, it's been a long time since he was completely starching Paulo Costa and humping him to what we're seeing now. And even the Paulo Costa win hasn't aged well.
Nope.
Boring win over Jared Cannonier. Boring win over Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
Yoel Romero win hasn't aged well. I mean, the Cannonier, not the performance of Cannonier, but like who he beat is still very impressive. But and obviously, I know we both think so. You can change stats and you can change narratives any way you want. It's super easy. We do this all the time. Me and you talk. So we can kind of, and now I can make a complete argument about how Izzy's the most credible fighter. But it's there a little bit. There's signs. So you got to ask it, is this the beginning of the decline? And we've seen that happen when Tyron Woodley lost his first match. Kamaru Usman lost his first match. All of a sudden it's like, nope, they're just not that guy anymore.
Oh, it's definitely the beginning of the decline. Like, there's not even any question of that. It's not like we're going to have to look back on this last year of Adesanya's career 5 years from now and realize in hindsight, we can already tell this is the beginning of the decline, because we've seen multiple things happen that we had never seen in MMA. We have seen him get knocked out. We have seen him get outstruck in fights where his opponent was not helped by the threat of the takedown. because even in the second Pereira fight, he had been losing up until the point when he won. Here, he got outstruck for 4 out of 5 rounds. That's something we never saw before. He's been hit cleanly more in his last 3 fights than in his first 12 fights in the UFC combined, easily. So, no, he absolutely, it's a combination of, well, he is entering his mid-30s after a long, after a kickboxing and then an MMA career, and there's a certain amount of him being figured out, because when you are the UFC champ, think of the hive mind that's working. All of the top gyms in the world have somebody in your weight class, and even if you're not their next opponent, some part of their mental capacity, some part of their whiteboard,
everybody
is,
everybody's watching. Everybody, every middleweight who watched this fight tonight was taking notes, and it goes back to how hard it is to stay on top, because you got to be perfect. Everyone's gunning for you, and you're always fighting the biggest guy. You're always fighting the best guy. You know what I mean? The hottest guy. That's why they got a title shot.
And 3 years ago, he was making the best guys in the world look so silly, and he was working through them so quickly that he moved up to 205 just for something to do other than start rematching people already. So yeah, like he's had a slide, but that doesn't mean he can't be champ again. And it doesn't mean he's done being a top 10 or top 5 fighter.
No, absolutely not. And the division is wide open right now.
Yes.
And all, who the real winners are? All those guys that are not getting shot to Izzy again. Robert Whittaker. I know Robert Whittaker lost to Duplessis, but if Izzy doesn't hold the title again, Whittaker's back in that picture with the 1 or 2 wins.
Oh,
Marvin Vettori.
Happiest guy in the world right now is Jared Cannonier, who has a win over your new champ that your new champ thinks he won, and is very likely to want back.
In fairness, though, that fight sucked.
It was terrible.
But one narrative that got buried tonight. So this is how I expected us to go into. I was going to message you earlier and be like, "Hey, be prepared to give me your top 10 fighters of all time." That was the narrative. Where's Izzy in the top 10? Has he passed Anderson Silva? Is he the greatest middleweight? Like I wanted to have that debate tonight. I think that debate, and I might be limited in the moment and over exaggerating a little bit, is for entertainment. Let's be honest. But losing the title twice now, that narrative is probably shot. I mean, he'd have to go on an incredible run for a third time. He'd have to win the belt and probably defend it 4 or 5 more times.
And it would really help if he got it back over Strickland in decisive fashion on his way. Because one of the great things that someone like George St. Pierre has in his back pocket is no unavenged losses.
That's right. That's a good point. So, I mean, I feel like that narrative, a big winner tonight, was also Anderson Silva, because that narrative's been put to bed. I'm not giving up on Izzy. So you said you don't want to do the immediate rematch. Let me pitch you an idea before I actually get who you would fight, and tell me if this is could this work? Could Izzy still headline a UFC pay-per-view without being the champion? Because there's very few guys who can. It's rare.
It would need the right B-side.
Could Duplessis be the B-side?
Yes.
So you could do especially in the location, you could do it in South
if
Africa.
You did it in South Africa, or you did it in Australia or New Zealand, sure.
Because I was saying, what if we did something like, say Chimaev beats Costa, and you give Chimaev the touch. Chimaev versus, imagine the gold of Chimaev and Strickland melting off to each other, and then add in Izzy and Duplessis fighting, somewhere else. That works. Now, I actually have a different plan. But so give me your actual guy. I'll give you my guys actually first, because you're probably going to go a little more sexy than I am. I'm not going Bo Nickel before you guys go crazy. I'm not giving them Bo Nickel, but all those people who were laughing at me when I said Bo Nickel could beat Izzy, not looking as crazy now as it did when I said it, 6 hours ago. To me, Strickland fights. I'm going to give him Duplessis. It's just the honor thing. He earned it. it's not going to be as sexy because they don't have that Africa and them dropping N bombs in each other and stuff. But well, Strickland still might. But I just do that. Strickland versus Duplessis.
I think that's the best move. It makes things more difficult because Duplessis is also one of the few top 10 guys that Adesanya hasn't already fought. But at this point, it's not about what makes it easy to book Adesanya anymore. It's not about what he deserves. It's about what Strickland deserves, and to a lesser extent, about what Duplessis deserves. So unless Strickland specifically wanted Cannonier back, I agree. Make it Strickland Duplessis, and then I'd give Adesanya either Roman Dolidze or Chimaev if he gets past Paulo Costa.
Okay. Now, Adesanya is really hard to book if you're not giving him the title shot because he's beaten so many other top guys. He's beaten Brunson, he's beaten Vettori, Whitaker, Cannonier. So I thought about doing like the Chimaev fight because that'd be huge and like, it doesn't have to be for a title, but I'm like, man, I want to save that for a main event of a pay-per-view. I don't want that third from the top, or I mean, if you could put that on UFC 300 as like a third from the top with two massive main events, sure. I'm going way lower.
Ooh,
like I'm going unranked. Like I'm trying to get Izzy to have a spectacular knockout. I'm giving Strickland's teammate. I'm going with Chris Curtis on like co-main event of a pay-per-view or something like that.
Great. That works for me. I mean, I can find appealing things in that kind of matchup. And
if he loses Chris Curtis, then he's done. Nothing against Chris Curtis, but he's done.
Sure.
And if he starts as Chris Curtis,
and if he wastes Chris Curtis, then it builds some some interest back up.
All right. Did you have a name in mind for Adesanya?
Yeah, I've either given him if Chimaev gets past Paulo Costa, I like Chimaev. If Paulo Costa beats Chimaev, then I don't want to see Adesanya Costa again. Maybe give him Roman Dolidze as a top 10 guy who's coming off a loss.
Okay. Yeah, no, Dolidze is fun. All right, let's move on. I feel like this is going to play itself out. It's going to be, it's one of the post-fight press conference. Obviously we don't get to watch it live because we're talking about this, but it's one of the ones I really want to hear what both guys have to say, especially Strickland. It's going to be interesting. Before that, Tai Tuivasa took on Alexander Volkov in the co-main event with Volkov winning by second round submission by Ezekiel choke. Raise your hand if you had Volkov winning by Ezekiel choke. Okay, I'm assuming that means nobody. I'll let you just take over. Just talk to me about this fight, and I'll kind of give my insight in a second.
You and I both had Volkov in this fight. I thought it was one of the easier fights on the card to call because Tuivasa had exactly one chance to win this in my mind. To do the Derek Lewis thing that Lewis did to Volkov. Survive somewhere between 4 and 14 minutes, land one huge kill shot. Outside of that, I thought everything about this fight favored Volkov heavily, and I'm ready to make a superlative statement here. We just had a little bit of GOAT talk. We're shying away from GOAT talk, talking about the main event. I think Alexander Volkov, if he is not the greatest tall man heavyweight of all time, he is now the second greatest of all time after Semmy Schilt. And by that, I mean...
Oh, I think he's better than Semmy Schilt.
And he probably is, especially considering the eras in which they were doing their thing. But
did Semmy Schilt lose to like Yuki Kondo?
Well,
I know it was different rules and pancreas and everything. But I don't care what the rules are. You shouldn't lose to a guy you got 60 pounds on.
But in terms of Volkov is somebody who's going to have a height and reach advantage, a substantial one on basically everybody he fights. And out of the heavyweights who fit that mold, he does a better job of actually using his height and reach to his best advantage while avoiding the normal pitfalls of being that big better than, I would say, any heavyweight in history. He might be the greatest tall man heavyweight of all time at this point. Just every other 6'7" or taller heavyweight in history, you find, except Tim Sylvia, you go, why doesn't this fucker throw a jab? Throw a jab.
There's a tall guy that I wasn't thinking. I think Tim Sylvia. I mean, he was the UFC champion. Multi times.
And
no,
he was
skill. Volkov beats
Yeah,
Tim Sylvia.
and
But it's a
and
different
Sylvia
era.
was an
Different era.
incredible overachiever because on top of everything else, he was not a great athlete, and so he overcame those limitations and just rode.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but
And skill-wise, Volkov smashes them.
Yeah,
But
well,
again, it's different eras.
this is the other thing I'm getting to. Volkov is continuing to improve. When he came to the UFC as, again, a former Bellator champ, which is very overrated as a resume point considering when he did it and whom he did it against, and a former M1 champ, I was like, well, this is good. I'm glad this guy landed in the UFC while he was still in his 20s. He's never going to be a champ, but maybe he'll stick around for a while and we'll get some fun stuff out of him. But I figured he was already a finished product. Again, as a veteran of a ton of fights for his age, someone who already been to the top in 2 other organizations, but he has been improving. And I've talked before about the way his physique has changed, how he's gone from being a kind of spindly, bird-chested tall guy to being just a huge dude. But also, he doesn't fuck around anymore. His rash of like first and early second round finishes, these are people that he used to let hang around for 3 rounds or 5 rounds and just give them that many more chances to find a way to beat him. He's not doing that anymore. He has the confidence that when he clearly has his opponent figured out and they haven't figured out how to get past his jab and how to get past his front kick, he's willing to turn on the jets, and he's developed a killer instinct. I love that he moved his training to Vegas, and I love the way he did it because he brought his coaches that he's been with since the beginning. It's not like he just threw the whole baby bathwater and everything out at once. He brought the coaches that got him this far, but he moved to Vegas where he had access to the UFC PI and the, nutrition and diet help there, and the wealth of sparring partners that he has going to places like Extreme Couture. Brilliant move. And I still don't know if he's a future champ.
No.
But he's the best he's ever been right now and still improving. And he's in a division where, at the very least, he could plateau at this level for another 5 or 6 years, no sweat, and he could even continue improving.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, like you talking about being a big guy, obviously he can fight really long, but he gets inside too, and he throws that like plum clinch on him, like he was grabbing the plum clinch and battering Tuivasa. But you mentioned it, and I'll kind of agree with you. The one thing about Volkov, he has more power than I've given credit to, but he's got a dog in him, which the other guys didn't have. Like Stefan Struve didn't have a dog in him. No. Volkov does. Like Volkov, like for example, he got hurt. I mean, Tuivasa, and shout out to Tuivasa's corner, because I think Tuivasa's corner did a very great job. Like when he was going into the second round, and they're like, dude, like kick his leg off. His leg's hurt and go for it. Like his leg's done. Like his guy almost got stopped like a couple times in the first round. He was hurt, and they found a way to convince him that he was still in the fight, give him the best avenue of victory. Now he couldn't execute it. But they did the right, what they were working with, they did the best they could. But what was impressive is to have that injury clearly be hurt and then just toughen up. And then he starts crashing the pocket on Tuivasa, gets in Tuivasa's danger and beats him up there. These other guys, like Tim Sylvia, wouldn't have done it. No. That was impressive. I agree with everything you're saying. Like, I don't expect him to be a UFC champ or anything, but it just comes. You beat Volkov, you're good. You're really good. You're Talon Aspinalls and guys like that. Like, you beat Volkov, you're the man. Like that's. I'm really impressed with him. Let's match make because it's so tough with him because it's kind of what we just talked about. He's faced everybody or beaten everybody. He's been in the division so long. With John Jones facing Stipe Miocic, you kind of have the next 2 guys. Like, who do they want to be the next champion? The 2 like hot guys that everyone wants: Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich. I could see him having to face one of them, and I know he just recently fought Tom Aspinall, so that could happen. But I'm kind of trying to stay away from that because what a lot of people expect to happen is John Jones to win and then move on, and you kind of have a vacancy, which I could see Aspinall and Pavlovich just get matched against each other for that. That's what I kind of expect to happen. I'm giving him a match because he's fought everybody else. He's fought Curtis Blades. He's fought Marcin Tyboras and all this. I'm going to do the Derek Lewis rematch. It's been a really long time. That was a fight he was winning the whole time.
Yep.
I let it be a main event of a fight night.
I'm totally fine with that. That's not what I came up with, but I like that just fine. And I'm glad you said that because my suggestion is a possible rematch as well. I threw Tegan Nataz's comments up there because I thought putting Tuivasa in the co-main event against Volkov was a miserable piece of hometown matchmaking. It was
Totally agree.
Probably the UFC's most mystifying high-level matchup choice since McCann versus Blanchfield. Because here, you knew Tuivasa was probably going to lose, and there was a good chance he was going to lose like a miserable fight.
Yeah.
Like the UFC's actually lucky that we got kind of a sassy finish out of it, because otherwise Volkov could have just kept on kicking and jabbing and bruising up Tuivasa for 3 rounds, and it would have been miserable. But I thought Tuivasa should have had an easier fight than this to start with. I'm going to give him the fight I wish he'd gotten at this card. Give him Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
Tuivasa.
Yeah, Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
And I'm sorry, who'd you have Volkov fight?
Volkov, I want him to take on the winner of Jailton Almeida and Curtis Blades.
Okay.
If it's Blades, that's fine. It's a couple fights since they fought. And again, Volkov is a demonstrably different fighter than he was then. And the Blades Volkov fight, I mean, Blades grounded him over and over again. But it's not like he smeared the canvas with him. I'd be willing to watch that again. But if Almeida beats Blades, then great. Almeida versus Volkov is fantastic to me.
I was trying to. I was sorry, I was a little distracted. I was trying to see who I tweeted at that I said basically the similar thing you said. Like, what I didn't understand the matchmaking with Tuivasa being that he's such a star. He needed a win. Why you would have him against someone who's such a bad stylistic matchup? So I was just that's why I think it was David Martin that I tweeted at, but I'm not really sure. I'm trying to get Tuivasa a win. I'm trying to get him a spectacular knockout because to me, and someone just mentioned her name, Molly McCann. He has that Molly McCann thing going, where he has star, but the star is dwindling. Like his star power. It's that it's celebrities, the people that were. I think of like. Who's the guy? Joey Lawrence, right? Is that a character or was that his real name? Remember the Joey Lawrence? All the girls loved him in the 90s.
Yeah.
But then his ship sailed. Like that's who Tuivasa, but I'm sure there's like a realm where he's still, I don't know where I thought of this, but a realm where that guy is still super popular with a certain set of people. Like Tuivasa is still extremely popular. I don't think regardless, win or lose, he's going to still be extremely popular in the Australia, New Zealand area. So I'm having him fight again in that era. I'm only having him fight in that era, and I'm getting him matches where I think he's going to win and win by knockout.
Boom. That's all you really need.
There you go. Joey Fatone. That's probably a better. There you go. That's better. I was aging with Joey Fatone from NSYNC. Yeah, he's like a Joey Fatone from NSYNC. So I'm putting him against. I'm still trying to get him a name so it seems like a big win. I'm giving Andre Arlovski.
I'm A-okay with that, but I think there's a really solid chance that we get a split decision in a terrible fight. And even if Tuivasa wins, like nobody wants to share their beer with him. Those people up in the mezzanine are like, hell no, this beer was $8. I'm keeping it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like get a win by knockout. Yeah. And I actually totally do agree. I actually think that is, I think he wins that one if I had to bet, but yeah, I wouldn't be super confident that's going to happen. People mentioned Junior Tafa.
You can't smash.
That's too close. Yeah, that's too close.
But hey, if he beats
Junior
Tafa,
it'd be fun as hell. It'd be fun as hell.
That sets up Justin Tafa to like avenge his brother against Tuivasa.
Yeah, I can't see those two guys fighting each other, but yeah, it'd be fun.
All right, Teague is just cruel now, like Parker Porter. What did Parker Porter ever do to you?
Yeah, Parker Porter. That would be. Whenever you need to get a heavyweight knockout, you can always dig up Parker Porter. All right, so people were asking about the fantasy. If you guys shout out to all the people watching our fantasy show. That was Jay Petrie's pick, Alex Monkoff. We kind of buried the lead a little bit. Ben on his fantasy team, we all dogged him for doing this. He picked Sean Strickland. He got a lot of points. He's kicking ass right now. Jay took a big loss having Adesanya lose. Oh, and not even mentioned, did you win the title? You get those points if you get the win too over somebody else's guy. Ben is rolling right now.
The pay-per-view main event win, the title win, the win over somebody else's fighter. Yeah, I'm starting off this fantasy MMA season in style.
Yeah, I have some points, not as many points as I was hoping, but I did have Manel Kopp as my flyweight as he won a unanimous decision against Felipe Dos Santos. Really fun fight. We'll get to the post-fight interview at the end, but uh, I'll say this. Let's talk about Dos Santos for a second. Like the guy coming in on very short notice. You're supposed to fight somebody else on the
here. Let me throw this question at you. Dos Santos came in short notice against a top 10 fighter. He was a huge underdog. He was expected to lose. He did lose. Given all of that, grade his performance.
Like a B plus. I don't want to give it an A. Like you have to win to get an A.
No, give it, but that's a good point because what I was going to say is I give him an A minus because the only thing he could have done better is actually win. Because he came in and most short notice opponents at least say they're going to go for broke. And generally speaking, it's the best strategy since you're taking advantage of the fact that your opponent hasn't had time to study you much either. You're hopefully compensating for the fact that you might not be peaking in terms of cardiovascular conditioning. Not everybody actually does it. He actually did it, but he did it in a smart way. Like, I don't know if it's possible to fight wild in a smart way, but the whole thing about Manel Kopp has always been, as incredible as he is, as gifted as he is, his gas tank has always been iffy, and he's always been hittable. Like, Dos Santos, he lost all 3 rounds, but all 3 rounds were individually competitive.
Yeah.
And if I had money on Kopp, I was never comfortable at any point until that final horn, that final weird bell or horn sounded. That
he buckled him a couple times, and this kid's 22 years old, so he's not even close to his prime. I like to see him with he's focusing on the opponent instead of coming in on short notice. If he can improve his defense, because his offensive weapons are really fun. He's got a great gas tank. He hits hard. He hits from weird angles. He's got so many like tools. He uses all 8 points. Like he's fun in that way. He does not know that he I don't know if he knows he's allowed to block punches. I don't know if he knows this. He's going with his blocking the punches like, I'm gonna try to headbutt his fist. That's how I'm gonna hurt his fist when he punches me. But if he can clean up his defense, he'll be good. Kopp, I don't know how I feel about Kopp, because yes, the weight issue. He seems like he's got that a little bit under control. He's super sharp. I mean, he is when he lets his hands go. I mean, they're quick, they're fast, they're powerful. I mean, I think it's something they said like. He's the only guy he's on like a streak of dropping guys in flyweight, which was really unheard of. He's the hardest hitter in the division. I don't think that's even a debate. And if he had a little bit of, to me, if he had a little more killer instinct and he turned it up, he probably could have got Dos Santos out there, because when anytime he was throwing combinations, he was landing clean and he rocked him a couple times. Mm-hmm. The problem when I was watching Kopp, and I tweeted this out, and I don't know if a lot of people understand what I mean by this, but I know you will, and I know our listeners will. He's got some Bobby Green in him, and he's got a little of the Diaz brothers, where if he's not getting hurt, he's not losing, and he cruises that time. And every time I throw my hands, I land clean, and he's landing glancing shots or not even landing at all. And I'm worried he's going to face a guy that he's better than, and he's just not going to match the output, and he's not going to drop the guy, and he's not going to. He's not going to hurt the guy. He's got to, he's going to land, and he's going to land at will, but he's not going to throw enough. He's not going to hurt as much, and he's going to lose to a guy he shouldn't lose to.
I completely agreed. You can argue that he already has.
Yeah, he already. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know he lost to Nicolau. That was a fight like, but didn't let his hands go. Now that was a lot of wrestling and everything, but still.
Yeah, and then I mean, Pantoja is your champ.
Yeah, Pantoja's the champ. Pantoja's the man. We'll address this really quick. I don't want to get too into much of this. I mean, Twitter said everything that we have to say. Yeah. Both we'll do this together. Both Manel Kopp and what was the other guy's name? Charlie Ratke. They both used a gay slur. let's just do better. Like just it's 2023. Just know better. You know, I do believe, and I might get in some trouble for this. I do believe sometimes people are outraged just to be outraged, just to try to show how moral they are. But they really don't. They're not really outraged. They just pretend to be. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That regardless if people are doing that or not, just be better. Like you're a professional athlete. Like, just whatever. If you want to say that in your house when you're watching your buddies, okay, fine. But when you're in public, just be smarter. Like, come on, guys. Like an NFL player, and I know it's happened in the NFL in the slip, but just come on. That's it. You speak better on this topic than I will.
Well, and of the two of us, I'm the snowflake. Like, you know, I'm
I'm glad you said that. Ben the snowflake Duffy. That's true.
Yeah, I'm decidedly the more liberal of us. Like, you know, the one that
I'm working on you though. I'm working on you.
You're working on me. You know, like we're gonna meet.
I'm gonna get you to fit into Texas.
Yeah,
gonna get that cowboy hat soon.
Yeah, I mean, if you pivot my camera, you're gonna see like, you know, some rainbow flags and stuff. You know, but yeah,
is that true? Is that really true?
Oh yeah, you know.
Okay,
I mean,
no,
like
I've got. I just couldn't tell if you were making a joke or you were.
No, I'm serious. But here, it's not like I'm offended for the gays. I'm just, dude, that's not professional. Like, you've got a mic and camera pointed at you. There's a pretty limited set of words that you don't use when you're at work. That's it. Like, start and finish. Like, that's it.
Yeah, I always think about my dad. My dad's he's not a snowflake at all. But he was, so he worked as at the end of he was a big long time owned his own like home repair. My dad's amazing, like home repair. But as he got older, you know, it's tougher on his body and stuff. So he started doing like home inspections and stuff. Like that was kind of what he did. You know, he's retired now, but and he was doing like he was like the head guy for it's a company around that does heating for low income housing and everything. So he was interviewing a guy. The guy was completely qualified, and he said, but then the guy just started swearing just in the interview, like just using F word, just not like swearing at my dad or angry, but just using the F word in the conversation. And my dad's like, and my dad doesn't care about using the F word, but it's like that's you do using the field. Like you go on the field and it's not like a formal interview for a job. My dad's like, I'm not hiring him. And he didn't hire him because of that.
No,
and my dad's like, it's not a field where you can't swear. My dad's like, I do it with other people.
It's the verbal equivalent of tying your shoes and putting on your tie when you go to the interview. They're not expecting you're going to wear a tie on the job site. They're expecting you're going to put your best foot forward in the interview.
That's exactly, yeah. So just be better. Tigga, I'm always messing this person's name up. Tigga Fat. We've said this a couple times. It's funny that Keith is I'm messing this up. Keith is the conservative in the liberal.
You put it up.
All right. We're both trying to do it at the same time.
Yeah, there you go.
Liberal in the liberal. I'm the conservative in the liberal town. Ben is the
down south liberal. Yep.
Yeah, we got it backwards. You would think it was the opposite, but there you go. All right. And I always say this, and we'll wrap this up, especially because it's the political season. Guys, just act. You know, I don't say don't act like me or Ben, because we're not the example. But like, listen, Ben can be a liberal Democrat. I can be a Republican. And dude, we still have love. We talk to each other 6 hours a day. Because you know why? We have more in common. We agree on more things than we disagree. The most conservative person in America and the most liberal person in America still agree on more things than we disagree on. We still think you should be nice to people. We still think love is good. We still think there shouldn't be slavery. We still think children should not be get sold. Okay?
Yeah.
There you go. Just be nice to each other. Yeah. All right, let's move on. It's like Keith, shut up. It's like 2:00 in the morning. What do you do? Let's matchmake Cop for a second because he's pretty close. I mean, he keeps doing this whole thing with Kai Kara France, and Kai Kara France is on a 2-fight losing streak. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. To me, it's like you're past Kara France. Why do you keep calling for this fight?
Here's the thing. He should be past Kai Kara France, but at the same time, I think Kara France beats him. Jay Petrie in the midst of typing 25,000 words for the Sherdog play-by-play tonight, threw out just an offhand comment in the Sherdog Slack saying that he thought Kai Car-France would have dismantled Cop tonight. And I thought that was the perfect word for it, because
I disagree, but okay.
He
could win. But okay.
I like the term dismantle specifically. Like, not, wouldn't steamroll and blow him out of the water. But when I hear dismantle, I think of something that's a little more scientific and dispassionate. I think Kai Car-France is exactly the kind of guy who would have made Cop pay for just all the little strategic and tactical blunders he made throughout the night. Whenever he got a little too wild, Kai Car-France would have made him pay. When he got too inactive and too lackadaisical, Car-France, would have made him pay for that. That's what I think. I do think he would have won. I still want to see that fight, even if it makes less and less sense as more time goes by. Like, if two guys that are both in the top 15 really, really, really seem to want to fight each other, who am I to say no?
Yeah. Let me ask you. Yeah, so that's the fight I went with. Like, they sold me on it. I don't get Cop's passion for that. Like, I feel like you passed it, but like, now with the press conference and him standing up and him like almost fighting Izzy, which might have been the only win that Izzy could have got tonight if he fought Cop instead of Strickland. How do you feel about them fighting the main event? How would you feel about a fight night main event? Or do you think something
Cop and Car-France?
Yeah, is that good? Is that a big enough one, or do you think?
I think it's almost an irrelevant question at this point when you see some of the stuff that they foisted on us in the last year or two. But even on paper, that makes sense if they're able, like, speaking again, if they're able to do it either in Oceania or Africa, great. And if things have shaken out to the point that they can say that the more relevant that fight is to the title at the time it happens, the easier it is to sell.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with everything you said. I think it'd be fun just because I think the flyweights need that respect. I like seeing flyweights higher up on the card. It's something we've talked about a lot, that I never know where a fight is going to be booked on a card. I think we lost Ben. I think Ben is frozen. So we both agree with the Car-France, book it, but at least have some juice in it. Don't have them fight each other with bad blood and have it be, on a prelims of a card, unless it's an absolutely loaded, like the New York City card or something like that, or if it's an all time. What happened to Ben? We had him for a second. There you go, Ben. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're lagging a little bit, but it's better than you were. Let's move on. Before that, Justin Taffa took on Austin Lane. We almost had about 10 seconds in. We had a poke in the eye, and then I was like, oh no, not again. And then instead, Justin Taffa just starches Austin Lane and finish it up with some really mean ground and pound. I gotta say, I mean, that's what Taffa's gonna do. He lands, he's gonna put you out.
Yeah, I think the comparisons of him to Mark Hunt are really not warranted, other than being short, squat Polynesian guys. But someone who fights him on his own terms, if you're just going to get in a slugfest with Justin Taffa, you do have to be kind of special to come out on the better end of it. Austin Lane is not, and he got thrashed.
Yeah. I just saw something in the chat. I threw it out to you. I don't know if that was an accident. So I sent you a private message there, man.
Just temporarily, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't see it. Okay. Yeah. Tyson Pedro. I have nothing else to say about that fight. You want to move on?
Nope. Let's move on.
All right. Tyson Pedro and Anton Takal fought in Tyson Pedro won by first round TKO. Pedro looked good, but is this still a Pedro look good? Because, we've seen him before be good. Or is this simply he fought the right guy?
He fought the right guy. Turkali, I said coming into this, he had shown nothing. He continued to show essentially nothing. Just feel bad. Because he's young, and he does have kind of an appealing, humorous personality. But you gotta at least win one, lose one, and he's losing bad every time, and he's losing to increasingly irrelevant fighters. It's and I feel like I'm talking about the cut list already, and I'm still just talking about the fight. But yeah, this is this is just Pedro running into the right opponent. They made a
Yeah,
big deal. Pedro made a big deal in the lead up to the fight, and to a certain extent after the fight, about how he's a new man after kind of relocating his training. I'll wait and see on that.
I know
Just
his last fight, he supposedly got really, really sick and almost had to pull out of the fight, fought anyways. So I mean, he looks super bad in his last fight. So there might be some truth to that. I'm not believing in the Tyson Pedro resurgence, but what I will say, I'm glad he had a moment. I'm glad he was in his home country. The entire crowd was going crazy for him on pay per view. I'm not happy him open up a pay per view, but I'm glad for him he had a moment.
oh, absolutely. And,
So
well, none of this is against Pedro. Like, he's another
oh
guy
yeah,
where he's got the kind of personality that I wish he were a better fighter.
just for that, you picked Tyson Pedro, right? We both
Yeah.
picked Pedro. Okay, so
Yeah.
that was a
No, you and I
consensus
both.
underdog.
Yeah. Yeah. We both picked Pedro. We both picked him my first round knockout. We aced
Nice,
that one. Yeah, we both went 10 of 12 on the night. We both got the
nice,
main event wrong, obviously. Then I picked Mariscal over Jenkins, and I got that one right. You picked Chusey over Crosby, and you got that one right, and I was wrong on
nice,
that one. Yeah.
nice. So we both had a pretty decent night.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and we're not a betting show, but there is something to the Shillan and Duffy consensus underdog picks. Dude, they cash every time. I know we did it on Tyson Pedro. We also had there was another one. What was the other one? Gabriel Morand was another one where he was the
Yeah.
underdog, and we both picked him to win. So, dude, if me and Ben both take an underdog, take it to the bank. It seems like we hit it every week. Before that, Carlos Ulberg versus Dan. I'm sorry, Dan. I'm getting late. Daun Jung. Ulberg won by third round submission, though he got a submission with 11 seconds left, but the referee didn't see it. The rest of the 11 seconds happened. Looked like Jung was saved by the bell. Was going to lose the decision regardless. They checked the tape. They saw a tap, and they changed it to a submission. I don't remember ever seeing that.
This is bad, man. I am not comfortable with this because Herb Dean didn't see it. The ref is the sole arbiter of the fight. Somebody else can't yell in after the fact, no, he tapped, and affect the outcome of a fight after that final bell. This
Imagine that happening in other sports. Like, oh, hey, we checked the teams went to the locker room. We actually checked, and the guy who stepped out of bounds, the other team wins, or something, something like that.
Not that I can think of. This is Bush League shit, and it seems like Bush League shit sometimes happens when the UFC goes to Australia. I'm thinking all the way back to DJ versus Ian McCall 1. Just weird regulatory stuff allowed to happen where something happens and you look around and it just feels like there are no adults in the room.
Yeah, I will say this. The good thing about this outcome is he was going to win regardless. He just got a submission win instead.
Yeah.
Now, that sucks for Jung. Well, no, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't suck for him because he did tap.
Yes.
So he can't say, I shouldn't have got a submission loss. To me, it's one of those, like, the ends justify the means, and I know that's usually used the opposite way,
Yeah.
But in this case, it didn't affect the outcome. It wasn't like, Jung was up by 2 and then, he was going to win the decision 29-28, and then suddenly Ulberg, got the submission win. The right guy won anyways. I thought it's funny because I saw a lot of people not really liking Ulberg's performance. They thought he should have destroyed Jung. I couldn't disagree. Like I thought it was fantastic tonight. I mean, his jab was on point, very accurate in his counters. His takedown defense has improved. Obviously, his ground game, we saw that. Like that was one area that I think most of us would have guessed that Jung would have the advantage. And dude,
I am on board with you. I was very impressed by Ulberg's performance because when you go in as a minus 275 favorite, you're expected to win. And you and I both picked him to win. So that's the minimum expected. He had to do more than that to impress me. And what he did to impress me was everything you said. Plus, the fight didn't go to the ground until he wanted it to. And then all of a sudden, he looked great there. We had every reason to believe that both the wrestling and the grappling would be places of advantage for Jung, and they were not. Ulberg looked really good. Just taking Jung down, methodically moving to mount, setting up a submission. You would not have thought this was a career kickboxer with fewer than 10 MMA fights. That's the kind of improvement I want to see out of somebody that wants to be more than just an occasional bonus monkey and wants to actually be a contender. Because with rare exceptions, you can't win a title in the UFC while being a one-note fighter. No, I was extremely impressed by Ulberg. I don't get it if somebody wasn't.
Yeah. Jung, I thought Jung fought the wrong way. I thought he should have fought how Cheppy Mariscal fought against Jenkins, where he was clearly outclassed at distance, and he needed to move in and get into the pocket or be chest to chest or something like that. And he didn't. He engaged in a long distance kickbox match. I was shaking my head. Before I move on, I will note though, if we can go back and change submissions and anything, I think Murilo Bustamante wants another win over Matt Lindland. That's for the old schoolers.
He gets 2 wins that night.
Yeah, give him another one though. Give him a quicker submission. All right, before that, Jack Jenkins took on Chepe Mariscal. Mariscal winning by a wizard kick where he posts his arm. He got dislocated. I'll say this. I'm not trying to take anything away from Mariscal. Mariscal fought very smart. He was outclassed. He closed the distance. And you know what? I was watching that. I was like, he's going to continue this, and he's going to win. He's gonna grind his way to a decision winning the last 2 rounds, and then obviously that didn't happen. So he continues to impress me, Mariscal, just being the dog in him.
There's something to be said for that, especially with someone like Jenkins who clearly has a ton of potential. But I said coming into this, he hasn't put it all together in a real command performance yet. And I mean, he'd won 2 fights coming into this, but there was plenty to pick at in both of those wins. And Mariscal just coming in really confident, putting pressure on him and staying in his face was enough to kind of keep him from getting into any kind of flow state. A little bit like what Strickland did to Adesanya. Yeah, if they rematch this thing 2 years from now, there's every chance that Jenkins makes Mariscal look silly because he is a technically better fighter. But tonight, Mariscal was just too much for him. And the arm injury was gruesome, and it made it something that'll show up on highlight reels, but Mariscal was winning anyway.
Well, I think it was going to be about 1-1, but yeah, I think I don't know if he would have won.
I meant I felt like he had the momentum, like he was heading towards winning.
Yeah, it was going the way he wanted at that point. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I want to address them real quick. So a lot of these slams, the guys post and they dislocate their arm. The reason why it happens so much in MMA is because of the give of the mat. The mat is definitely harder than say like wrestling. Wrestling mats have a little more give, so that's why you don't see it. I mean, it does happen in wrestling when a guy posts on a wizard. It's just natural to catch yourself. But actually, the similar injury happened to me. Mine was I tore my bicep. I did the bicep roll right up to my arm, and it was a wrestling. I was wrestling MMA. I was taking the guy down. And he tried whizzing. I posted like that, and it was on almost like gymnastics type mats. It weren't like wrestling mats, and ripped right up my whole arm. So I've been there, Jack Jenkins. So hopefully there's no ligament or muscle damage, only just dislocated. So, but yeah, Mariscal continues to impress. Before that, Jamie Mullarkey took on John McDessie, probably the most controversial fight of the evening. To me, it kind of came down to what we've talked about. It seems like anyone's we have a really close fight. We talked about it, volume versus power. I thought Mullarkey had more volume. Mullarkey had more volume and McDessie had more power. I scored it 29-28 for McDessie. How did you score?
I scored it for McDessie as well, actually. I gave McDessie the second and third rounds.
Okay, that's exactly what I had. But to me, it was extremely close. I don't think it was a robbery or anything. I thought Mullarkey clearly won the first round. I thought the second round, Mullarkey was on his way to winning, and then McDessie stole it. We dropped him right at the very, very end. And then the third round, I thought it was very close, but I leaned slightly towards McDessie. I went to MMA decisions to kind of, clarify to see. It was 12-2 in favor for McDessie. The only 2 people who scored it for Mullarkey was our very own Jay Petrie and Devin Tejada. But in fairness, we saw their fantasy MMA picks, so we can't really trust their judgment. All right, before that, Nasrat Haqparast took on Landon Quinones. We haven't got to the awards yet, but to me, this has to be the fight of the night. This was incredible. This was a great fight. Talk to me about it.
It was a great fight, and I don't know if it's the fight of the night either, but there were only 2 competitive fights on the night. There was Cop dos Santos in this, so it's pretty easy. I thought this was a fantastic fight. Even though I scored all 3 rounds for Haqparast, they were all individually very competitive. Both guys had their moments. Well, again, kind of like Cop versus Dos Santos, where Cop won all 3 rounds, but Dos Santos had his moments in every round, actually hurt the winning fighter, and you weren't comfortable with the outcome until the very end. Aside from that, it was basically just a pretty high-paced kickboxing match the whole time. Not too much I saw there other than bread and butter kickboxing. I feel like Haqparast is one of those guys whose power gets overrated a little bit because he really clocked some people in his first 2 or 3 UFC fights.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But at the same time, he does have some power. I mean, just because he's not Michael Chandler or Justin Gaethje doesn't mean that he can't crack. He's definitely above average power, especially when he's fighting at 155 rather than 170.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I'll say this about Haqparast. He's good inside. When he gets inside and he lets his hands go, he's really good. He's very good. Like, he's one of the true guys that throws a lot of uppercuts, and he's pretty good at it. The one thing I've learned about Haqparast, he seems to me like his training, without even like seeing him train, I would guess he's a guy who does a lot of pad work and he does a lot of like combo drills, because he does a lot of 3-4 punches and then get out and like observe his stuff. Instead of like, he had Quinones hurt a couple times, and then even the Quinones team talking about him stepping back out and observing, like, no, just go smash him, dude. You're like, you're doing well. Don't stop backing off. Like, you're kind of like hurting yourself. We a lot of people were talking about Quinones heading into this. A lot of people were upset at him getting, a bump up to the UFC, considering he had a terrible showing on Tough. We were one of the few people that were like, no, this guy's good. Like, I'm glad. I thought he had a good showing. I knew, Haqparast is obviously a really tough out in your UFC debut, but there was not many people that were, on the Quinones deserves the UFC, but we were one of them, so that's good. One thing I will say about Haqparast that impressed me, like, he was struggling early with obviously the calf kicks of Quinones. To me, he looked like a veteran, and he just made a very small adjustment in that fight, and it was simply just he moved to the pocket, which forced Quinones really on his back foot. So Quinones started to fight, very similar to how Izzy had to fighting off his back foot, so he really couldn't get the power in those kicks and stuff, and had to kind of make him a little more defensive and kind of making him counter instead, so he couldn't really counter with the kicks. So I thought that Haqparast was impressive in that. Before that, we had Blood Diamond taking on Charlie Radke. Charlie Radke winning a unanimous decision. I saw some draws out there on some people's. How did you score it?
Radke versus Blood Diamond?
I saw some
29-27.
Okay.
For Radke.
So you had
I had him winning the first 2 rounds, and I had 9-9 in the last round.
Okay. All right. So I had it the same. I don't remember which round it was. I actually scored a 29-26. I gave him a 10-8 round in the first round. Oh, maybe it was a second. Whatever round he hurt him and had him doing the ice skating thing, I actually scored a 10-8 round.
That was 2. That was round 2.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So it was round 2.
Yeah, he's chasing him, stumbling all the way across the cage. I figured it was going to be over right then. I'm fine with a 10-8 that round. So,
but I agree. I gave Blood Diamond the last round, but being that the point deduction, I had it 9-9, so that's why I had the one weird 29-26 scorecard. What I'll say about this is just continued proof, and the main event is another continued proof. Regardless of how decorated you are in kickboxing, MMA is different. Striking in MMA is different. The speed is different. Obviously, the biggest thing is the defense. You really can't pillar and hide behind gloves, and we saw that. And then also the threat of the takedown, I think, set up that big shot for Radke, because Blood Diamond's really focusing about, okay, he keeps trying to get in my hips. He keeps locking. I'm trying to fight hands. And you kind of, forget about the striking defense for a second. And he got clocked. So.
And the sad thing is, Blood Diamond, to me, subjectively, looked better here. He looked better than he did in either of his other 2 UFC fights. He might
that's not
actually.
saying much.
That's why I'm kind of choosing my words carefully. I said this on the preview. It sounds mean. I'm still going to say it. I'm surprised that City Kickboxing, that even though they had an off night tonight, is still, I think, one of the top 5 camps in the sport right now.
Absolutely. It might be number 1.
Yeah,
still.
I'm surprised that after now almost 2 years and 3 or 4 camps is putting somebody into the cage as unprepared to fight in MMA as Mike Mathetha seems to be.
Yeah, to their credit, I think his takedown defense was much improved.
And that's kind of, go ahead.
But yeah, he's not like, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 guys on the roster we could probably dig up that he could win. But there's not many. And to his credit, he did everything possible to win. I mean, he cooked Ratke in the nuts about 5 times. I know he held his gloves. He grabbed the fence. Like he
filled the whole bingo card for sure. Like Tim Elliott, giving a little golf clap wherever he's sitting right now. No, I'm glad you mentioned, because he looked more comfortable with defensive wrestling and with the ground part of the game in general than he did in the Wells or the Kosi fights. But he just turned 35, and so there's a limited window, even if he does become halfway competent at those things, that window is shutting really quick on him.
And that might be City Kickboxer's argument. Like, being at his age, like, he's probably never be that ready, so just get him in there and get the accolades and all that as he can. So that might be a little bit to that. If you're just tuning in now, obviously Charlie Radke, very he gets a UFC win, his UFC debut, but then he says a very controversial the gay slur in his post. We've already addressed that during the Manal Cup, so if you want to hear us talk about that, go back to that earlier in the show where you kind of already addressed it. Before that, Shane Young versus Gabriel Moran. Moran winning by first round sub. We both picked Pedro. I don't think we were as confident. Like, we were both pretty confident in Moran that this was kind of an easy pick. Like, I didn't understand. Yeah, take it to the bank. We tell you to take the underdog. Take it to the bank.
Yeah,
like this. Shane Young shouldn't be favored of anybody.
Nope. And that's as simple as it was for me. Just Young isn't that good, and he seems like he should be a good fighter. He's got the right style. He's got the right age, the right physique. He's at the right camp, and it just doesn't translate. He's just not that great, even at the things he's supposed to be good at.
Yeah, and the only thing that we talk about Blood Diamond cheat, and the only thing that Blood Diamond didn't do, Shane Young covered for him by missing weight. Like he did it. Shane Young missed weight by a lot. It was back-to-back fights. And we'll talk about the open fight. Back-to-back fights where guys got taken down and they did not protect the neck. And guys locked in pretty easy rear naked chokes.
Yeah.
Two a City Kickboxing guy, one by a City Kickboxing guy. The City Boxing guy who got the submission his debut, Kevin Jusay, submitted Kiefer Crosby by first round submission. I'll say about Jusay, he's massive. He's like the biggest welterweight I've ever seen. He's huge.
Yeah.
I think Crosby gave up. Like, Crosby was losing. He was getting jabbed up. He went for a judo throw, got thrown himself, and it seemed like he had that moment where he was defeated. And he just took his back kind of slowly, put the hooks in kind of slow, locked in a rear naked choke where the guy never once defended. And it's like when you're wrestling and you try to set up a move, and you do a move on one side and you're like baiting a guy to defend this, so I can go to this other move, and also you're like, he's not defending it. And you're like, yeah, so just finish the original, like actually do the original move. Like, I feel like that's what happened with you say, like, oh, he's not blocking the rear naked choke, so just choke him out.
There's sometimes when we make a wrong pick and afterwards I'm like, well, hey, I called this fight wrong, but I learned a ton. Look no further than our main event tonight. There are some times when I saw the fight right, but just something unforeseeable happened. Well, hey, that's why MMA is great. There are some times when I pick a fight wrong and I am just kicking myself in the butt almost immediately. This is one of those, because I said right off the bat that I can't believe I'm picking a guy that got choked out effortlessly by Georgi Karahanyan in Bellator just a couple of years ago. And then as soon as Jusei is starting to choke him out and he's just not doing anything to defend it, I'm like, do I even listen to myself? Like, I'm a fucking idiot. Yeah, I'm mad at Kiefer Crosby, but I'm more mad at myself. No, I'm disappointed in him. I'm mad at myself.
Yeah, the ones people say, yeah, like, yeah, like when someone cheats on you, like, yeah, I'm more mad at myself for trusting him, like that woman who's, boyfriend's always cheating on him or something.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys we covered all 12 fights. Let's get to the fun stuff. Do we have the awards, Ben?
Awards. We certainly should. Give me just a moment here. Yes. We have a fight of the night, and we have 2 performances of the night. So,
all right.
In the chat, put down who you would give the awards to. Name your fight of the night, name your performances of the night, and I'll read out some or put them up on the screen.
Okay.
While you're doing that, Keith, whom would you have given these awards to?
Well, I really want to give Strickland the performance bonus, though I'm not going to, because I mean, like he didn't whoop his ass. It wasn't like, oh my god. So I'm gonna go with the two guys that open up the main card. I'm gonna go with Taffa and Pedro. Both got first round stoppages to start off the pay per view. As far as the fight of the night, I'm gonna go with Hawk Pross and Quinones. I know that's on the prelims, and it's not often the UFC goes with that. But that was such a fun fight. It was such a, and I really hope a guy like Quinones, coming in UFC debut, short notice. Like I hope a guy like that gets paid, especially after like how embarrassing it must have been for him to be home, knowing what happened to him on Tough, waiting week by week for it to like, all right, just hurry up. All right, here's today, get over with, Mm-hmm. So I hope those guys get 50 G's.
Marcus Mustard agrees with you that Nasrat and Quinones should be fight of the night. Henry H. did give a performance of the night to Strickland. Tiga says fight of the night, Cop versus Dos Santos. That's the other obvious candidate. Alan McDonald, Strickland and Pedro for performances of the night. Hawk Pross and Quinones for fight of the night. There seems to be kind of a consensus here, just a few usual suspect type candidates. Your actual winners, fight of the night is Manel Cop versus Felipe Dos Santos. So, again, deserving, even if you would have leaned towards the prelim clash. And then your performances of the night go to to Justin Taffa for his first round knockout of Austin Lane. And Sean Strickland, your main event winner, for his command performance against Israel Adesanya, picking up the best win of his career, gets a little extra something to soothe the pain of his troubled childhood.
All right, I agree with that. I'm okay. Like I had a feeling that Strickland was going to get it. Usually when a guy wins a title, and it's not like a super boring fight or anything like that, they got to get it. All right, so again, we got the Bulls and the Bears. We got the cut list. We got to do seriously. Is there anything you want to do first?
I'd like to do Bulls before Bears, but aside from that, what order we go in doesn't. We usually do the cut list right away, but
I already threw Bulls up there just because.
All right, well, then
let's do the Bulls. Let's go positive.
All right.
We do. So the Bulls and Bears are a stock market reference. Bulls is good. Bears are bad. You want to be on the Bulls list. You want to be on the Bears list. We do it hockey style. We can pick up to 3, kind of like our 3 stars of the night. Ben, I will let you go first.
Okay. Well, Bulls, number 3, I'm going to go Carlos Ulberg. Again, when you walk into a fight as almost a 3-1 favorite, you need to do something a little bit special in order to make my Bulls list at least. He did. He showed different wrinkles to his game. He beat, in my opinion, the best fighter and the trickiest style matchup of the people he's beaten in the UFC so far. And those are 2 things he definitely needed to do if he wants to be taken seriously as a contender. And at this point where he's won, 4 in a row? He's 4-1 in the UFC. He's probably going to get a ranked opponent next, and the UFC can have confidence. Okay, this guy actually is comfortable on the ground, and the things he's already good at are translating across as he moves up the the ladder. So that's good. Bulls, Dos Santos. Again, you come in as a short notice opponent against a top 10 fighter who happens to be, at worst, one of the 3 hardest hitters in the history of your division. Not much is expected of you. He went out and did the best that a fighter in that situation could do other than actually win. Just threw caution to the wind, yet still fought in a fairly composed fashion, made it real competitive, and picked himself up a bonus. Number 1, I'm going to be a little self-serving here and step outside the actual card, because about an hour and a half ago, right when we were discussing possible next matchups for Strickland and Adesanya, it ticked over to September 10th, which is my birthday. So I am starting my birthday with you and 66 of our best friends in the chat. Couldn't think of a better way to enter a new decade of this life.
Nice. Happy birthday, my man.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. So you're ultimately all right. So you're now number 1 on my Bulls list. We should have saved it. You said Bulls. We should have saved it.
No, I said Bulls after Bears. I'm pretty sure I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you said the opposite.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, I'm apologize. Anyways, happy birthday to my man. We should. If I knew that, I would have put it dead last on the entire show. All right, my Bulls. Yeah, I mean, very similar. I'm gonna go with Alexander Volkov. He's won 3 fights in a row. You said he's looked fantastic. Besides winning streak, just looking very good during it. Obviously, I had Alberg and a lot of the ones you did, but I'll throw a fun one on there. How about Gilbert Burns, a translator? The guy can do everything.
He can do everything.
Didn't even need to translate because the guy spoke English, but whatever.
I don't think they're going to let him get on a plane back to the States or to Brazil, because they're looking at him now in his middleweight form with that mop of curly hair. He looks like a Maori or something. It's like, no, dude, I don't care what your passport says. You're definitely from New Zealand. You're not getting on this plane.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nice.
He is a man transformed, and he looks super happy.
Yeah, and number 1, I mean, anytime you win a UFC title, the stock is obviously way up. Sean Strickland's stock through the roof. But yeah, what a performance! The UFC in the last 2 pay-per-views, they've added some characters to be champions. Sean O'Malley last month, Sean Strickland this month. If Colby Covington wins by the end of the year, wow, the UFC's PR team's going to have to put in a lot of work. All right, let's go to the Bears. Again, I apologize. I think I heard you wrong. I would have definitely set you up to get yourself a nice shout out. All right, Bears. I'll go first this time.
Go for it.
I'll go with UFC Code of Conduct. that stock is fallen as between the 2 slurs. I'm sure Sean Strickland's probably saying something he shouldn't in the post fight presser. Obviously, Israel Adesanya. Prior to tonight, the last time we saw him step in the octagon, him facing off with Dricus Du Plessis was probably didn't follow the code of conduct. So probably time just to throw that thing out and start fresh. My number 2, Taito Avasa. I mean, he's lost 3 fights in a row. He had a nice little run when people started to believe in him. It seems like it's long gone. And my number 1, anytime you lose a title, your stock obviously loses. He's lost 2 out of 3 right now. Izzy, he's got some work done. The end could. I mean, I know that'll be part of his thing. If he wins, I wouldn't give up on him like last time. But yeah, his stock is down. Do you have any more Bears?
Yeah, I have a couple more Bears. You know what? I'll just add 2 actually. Bear number 1, John McDessie. He lost a decision in a fight that he arguably won. I thought he won it. You thought he won it. You can make the argument that he could have made it so it didn't have to be that close. But being John McDessie, he's now probably going to have 10 or 12 months to stew about it because he fights once a year. So it's super Bear time for John McDessie because he's not getting this back anytime soon. And to me, the biggest, most obvious number 1 Bear of the night, UFC Africa. If they'd done it 2 years ago, there would have been 3 champs they could have put on the card.
Oh, good.
Arguably, at worst, 3 of the 5 most dominant fighters in the sport. And once again, there are 0 African-born champs in the UFC right now. UFC cannot get out of its own way and just do the obvious right thing sometimes.
Yeah, good call, man. That's a good one. It wasn't that long ago. We had 3 UFC champs. We have no UFC champs from Africa. Good call. And we lost
same thing's going to happen to Mexico before they manage to,
Oof,
yeah.
Good call. So nice job there. Let's go over to the cut list. The cut list is similar to the Bears list. This is where we give UFC opportunity to cut some fat, make some room for some of these contender series. If both me and Ben have guys on our cut list, the same person, we grant the UFC permission to cut the person. I have 3 on my list. How many do you have, Ben?
I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3, and it's close to being 5.
Yeah, I had a couple guys that could get cut. I left them on my list. So I have Shane Young.
Ding, ding,
He's
ding.
Four in a row. Time for Shane Young. I have Da Un Jung. He's lost 3 in a row. Got submitted tonight.
He's one of the ones that I granted a reprieve to.
All right.
I figure Jung has 3 losses in a row, but they're all to guys who are at least going to be in the top 15 after beating him. If you're a literal gatekeeper to the top 15, he at least deserves a comeback fight.
And he did beat William Knights, which is always a good win.
Yeah.
The other guy, I know this guy's on your list. Anton Takali, 3 losses in a row, got finished again.
As somebody, and I wish I remember who, said earlier in the chat, he can go pleasure himself somewhere else.
And I have another guy. I didn't write this down. I just realized it. I didn't know how I glazed over him, probably because I just assumed he shouldn't be in the UFC and I ignored it. Oh, Blood Diamond. I'm sorry. Blood Diamond should be gone.
Blood Diamond was the other one on my list.
Okay. Yeah, that was a bad mistake for me.
Yeah. And then the other person I gave a reprieve to is Tuivasa. He's lost 3 in a row, but again, they still have him fighting top 10 guys.
Yeah,
I talked about this on the preview where they almost match him. He never gets a break. When he's winning fights, they move him up the ladder. When he's losing fights, they just hold still. He deserves an unranked fighter. He should have been fighting Austin Lane tonight.
Yeah, and if he knocks a guy out in Australia and he's doing shoeies on his way out, I think he's just – people forget all his losses. John McDessie was the guy I was thinking about, but being that I thought he should have won, I give him a pass too. So, all right, let's get to the dude seriously. Ben, do you have any dude seriouslys?
I feel like we've covered the obvious ones. I'm not going to reiterate the whole thing about people not watching themselves on the mic or about the complete carnival of cheating that the undercard was. I mean, those were my dude seriouslys.
All right, I'll give you some dude seriouslys. I'm sure the chat will have some too. I'm going to start with Jusei. Gets a win, starts off the night great for City Kickboxing, and then he blew it all by calling out Ian Machado Gary for a fight. Dude, seriously, you're not getting Machado Gary. The only way you get Machado Gary next is if he's booked against Stephen Thompson on a pay-per-view opener or something like that. And Thompson gets hurt on Tuesday for the fight on Saturday, and you're there cornering somebody and you volunteer. That's it. That's the only way it's happening to giving you Machado Gary. Come on, dude. Seriously. All those guys City Kickboxing, you're a great team. None of you guys could have schooled him and told him, guy, dude, stop. DC ran away from the guys when the guys were they were saying the wrong post comments. Yeah. DC should have ran away from him when he started saying that too. All right, guy, get out of here.
Yeah.
Speaking of DC, I'm going to give DC and Lars saying that I don't hate DC. I think he brings something entertaining. I think he's fun. He doesn't put the homework in, but and Larasenko does enough for both ends. She's fantastic. But Larasenko being surprised that Australia likes John Denver, Take Me Home, Country Roads, and DC bashing. I'm going to give you both, dude. Serious. Everybody loves John Denver. Come on, that song is fantastic.
It's an amazing song. Yeah, of course they love that. Of course they were singing along. I don't hate DC either, but it's very dependent on who's on the mic with him because of the fact that he isn't well prepared. So if he's on the mic with Cruz, I mean, clearly Cruz hates it, but it helps DC. What kills me is when it's DC and Rogan. I forget who called it this, but it's the perfect example. It's like listening to two people give a book report on a book they haven't read.
Yeah, because they're both kind of playing the same role. Like having them together doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and they'll just give irrelevant references to something like that happened 15 years ago, and just are oblivious to things that happened 1 year ago. Yeah, it's bad.
And my last one, you kind of touched on it, so I jump on it. But dude, seriously, like Gilbert Burns, is his barber on vacation? Like, dude, seriously, he looks like he's homeless with his Bart Simpson Nirvana type shirt, like that was like funny 20 years ago. That looked like someone hands into like the Salvation Army. They gave it to this homeless guy who needs a haircut. Like, dude, seriously, come on, Gilbert.
And his actual hair, he looks like
it's out of control.
Remember when The Rock very, very first started wrestling, before he became The Rock, when they were still they called him Rocky Maivia and stuff, and he had this huge, just kind of like Polynesian fro thing coming out, and he himself says he looked like a pineapple. That's what Burns looked like. Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get to the grade. Ben, what was your grade for this card?
Honestly, I feel weird giving this card a B, but it ended up just feeling like I was witnessing an event and not in a terrible, like awful event type way. And that makes up for a card that was super low on relevance and name value, and a card where there were almost no really competitive fights. So I give it a B, and before the main event, it was a D-, just teetering on the edge. If Adesanya had won 49-46, I'm sure I would have been giving this card a D right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I totally agree. The exact grade I wrote down was a B, based on everything you said. Like, it's memorable. Like, I'm always about memories. I've seen great fights. I've seen enough fights in my life. If you told me to name my 50 greatest fights, I wrote them all down. All of a sudden, you name someone, I'm like, oh man, that's another good one that should be on my list. Like, I can name them all day. So sure. I've seen great. I like the memories. So, yeah, I'll go with B. Our boy Jeff Berman,
yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Jeff. Not liking the card, going with a C-. Man, that's a tough grader, man.
Yeah.
Jeff Pelton goes B+, so he liked it. 1 foot out the door, C+. That's okay. So Chris Wiz, D- on paper, B when it happened. Yeah, that's kind of how I scored it. So I think Chris Wiz had it right. So Al McDonald, B rating. So the scores are all over the place. So, all right, Ben, the toughest question of the night is always the listener of the night. What is your listener of the night?
You know what? There was a ton of good interaction tonight, because there's plenty of stuff to laugh at, and that's when I'm watching the chat, because people are making me fall out of my chair, and good insights too. A tough one to pick this time, but I am going to give it to Chris Wiz. Just volume and power. Made me laugh a couple times, made me think about a couple of things different ways, but then finally, when it counted, completely agreed with me on the grade for the card. My recency bias comes in. Chris Wiz wins my listener of the night.
Yeah, it's a great chat, as always. A lot of strong guys. Alan McDonald, Marcus Mustard. Obviously, I mean, Dev doesn't count anymore, so he's never winning it anymore. Yeah. These guys are really, really strong. You mentioned Chris Wiz. There was one I haven't seen that a lot. Londo was shitting on everything. I was enjoying. Yeah, I was enjoying Londo.
But Londo is cordially invited back if and when Israel Adesanya wins the title again, because he was dead sure that Adesanya is going to make Strickland look silly in the rematch.
He could.
He certainly could. I thought he was going to make him look silly tonight. Londo, you are cordially invited back to come get your flowers. If and when that happens, we will make sure to give you all the credit.
Yeah. I'm going to go with one who made me laugh a couple times. Now, I'm going to butcher your name every time. It just does not roll off my tongue right. That's why Ben's the professional. I am not. But Tigger Fat Tops. I'm always messing up. But I thought Tigger was great all night. So that's my listener of the night. So there you guys have it. We've recapped all 12 fights. It's actually probably a shorter one. It just at 2 hours for pay-per-view. It's kind of short. So we'll be back. We'll be previewing the newest another title fight, which is weird. Back-to-back title fights, 2 weeks. We have Alexa Grasso defending her title for the first time against her old nemesis, former champion Valentina Shevchenko. We had a couple other fun fights on that card. Kevin Holland versus Jack Maddalena. So we'll be recapping that. So we'll be previewing that. Then we'll also be recapping that, both me and Ben, next week around the same time. One thing I'll ask you guys, do all the things that all the other places beg you to do. We've got to get these numbers up. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification buttons, do all that fun stuff. But in the meantime, we'll see you next week. But most importantly, once again, my man Ben, happy birthday, my man.
And thanks to whoever asked me if I was 40. That is too kind of you, because I am 50.
It's a big one. All right, guys. See you later.